Most importantly though, this episode marks Electronic Arts' entry into the console market. The first US-based publisher on the Genesis will one day become one of the most powerful video game companies in the world, and it all started on Sega's 16-bit console. Electronic Arts was born in 1982. The brainchild of Trip Hawkins, then the director of strategy and marketing at Apple, EA was formed based on Hawkins' prediction that the PC gaming market was going to explode as the machines became affordable enough to really reach the mass market. EA was unique in a lot of ways. The game makers were the central figures of the business. Advertising featured the names and pictures of the developers prominently, and game packaging featured developers' names right in the titles. The packaging was designed to look more like a rock album cover than traditional video game fare, and Hawkins bucked the established distribution rules in order to keep more of the profits for the company and the designers, rather than for the middlemen that controlled the market. Through all this, and some great games by early industry visionaries like Bill Budge, Peter Molyneux, and Danny Bunton, EA became an instant success. The PC games business was booming. That is, until the console crash of the early 80s. While PC gaming didn't disappear as completely as console gaming, the market did go flat. Hawkins responded by changing the names on the boxes. Rather than featuring developers, he featured well-known sports stars. As we know, Sega used a similar strategy when they launched in North America. One-on-One Dr. J vs. Larry Bird was the earliest example of this, and the superstar names on the boxes helped sell the games, as did future licensing deals, which allowed EA to weather the storm in the mid-80s. That's probably why, when Nintendo came knocking to discuss EA supporting the NES in America, Hawkins allegedly refused. That and Nintendo's ridiculous licensing agreement gave the developers and publishers very little control of their own destiny, relying on Nintendo for stock and paying them a fee for every game sold. By 1989, though, Hawkins had a change of heart. Although he did get a license to release games on the NES, the Mega Drive was what really caught his attention. He thought the console had what it would take to grab a big chunk of the market, plus the system architecture would make ports of EA's PC games a relatively simple and quick undertaking. But make no mistake, although Sega is remembered as the scrappy upstart, it was basically trying to ape Nintendo's business practices in a lot of ways. Its licensing agreements were almost as restrictive, and though Hawkins saw potential in the system, he wasn't willing to kowtow to a manufacturer without even a fraction of Nintendo's power. Atari and Nintendo were locked in a bitter legal battle at the time over the fact that Atari had attained an NES license and used it to reverse engineer the console, circumventing the system's security and thus sidestepping Nintendo altogether to release unlicensed games into the market. Hawkins knew that the same thing would work on the Genesis, but that EA had to be smart about it. And so in 1989, EA acquired a Mega Drive development kit, and two teams went to work disassembling and reverse engineering it. By 1990, EA was ready to self-publish its games on the Genesis. The box the team created is still on display at EA's San Francisco offices. Pictures of it circulated in 2008 as part of an Ars Technica piece by Ben Kuchera. In a 1990 interview with Video Games and Computer Entertainment magazine, Hawkins described his approach to selling Genesis games thus: "Sega doesn't have the same kind of marketing strength as Nintendo. We never felt we needed a license. We're still in negotiation with Sega, but we didn't feel that we needed their trademark on our products." But before he pulled the trigger, Hawkins presented his plans to Sega, letting the publisher know that he was prepared to move without them and to sell his technology to other potential game publishers. He offered to go legit, though, if Sega would give him better licensing terms. Fearing what could happen if the market was flooded with unlicensed games, Sega capitulated, offering terms that saved EA millions of dollars over the years that it supported the Genesis. Plus, as the first big US publisher, EA basically got to split the growing Genesis market with Sega right down the middle. That's also why EA's Genesis cartridges look so different from anything else on the system. It was an odd beginning to one of the most successful relationships in the 16-bit console market. Not only was EA the first major US publisher on the Genesis, but it was about to corner the sports genre and become one of the most powerful third-party publishers in the world, and it was dedicated to Sega's machine from the start.
Your secrets, if you really look at yourself, you would be speechless. What happened to being doctors and teachers? What happened to being your brother's keeper? Nowadays kids more worried